Thank you for coming on Det Nation. It's fantastic. I've been really excited to have you on. It's a Sunday. A Sunday is a really good day to talk about art. I love art. I know you're an expert at art. Just tell the audience who you are and your degree and why you're qualified to come and talk about art on Det Nation.
Hello, everyone. My name is John, and I graduated from ANU School of Art, and my bachelor is a visual art degree, and I am specializing in photography. I did 3 years in ANU. For my last year degree, I did abstract photography, and it was quite really good. And I learned about art theory during my study as well.
So the art business is wacky, to say the least. It's wacky. It's a wild ride. It's a roller coaster, because you have quite special people who are involved in the process of making the art. But then this stuff becomes valuable. And John, we were just talking before. You think that art is going to be worth more than gold on average? Is that what it is? Fine gold on average?
Well, art is like, yeah, I do agree it's going to be worth more than gold. It's because, well, it's when you look at art market and stuff, the paintings have been sold around $400 million. And if something happened, like touch wood, like some collapses and stuff, and then if someone gets a hand on that piece of painting, that person is going to be one rich person.
All right, so we'll go into the first little segment, and there was an art market 2019 UBS report from the banks. They released it. I'm just going to throw some stats at you, and we're going to have a quick talk about this because this is really fundamental.
Yeah, let's do it.
So the global sales, they say in this report, the global sales in 2018 reached 67.4 billion, and that's a 6-year increase. This brings the market to the second highest level in 10 years, which values advancing 9% over the decade from 2008 to 2018. So basically, the art market, ever since the financial crash of 2008, has been advancing according to this report. And the leader in this is the top three markets, according to this report, are the United States, the United Kingdom, and China. So they further cemented their position over the total of the globe. What say you? Is that all New York? Is that Beijing? Is that Shanghai? Is it London? When you're going to buy art, where would you go? I mean, there's obviously these three places, but where in those places?
So for America, let's start with America. America is kind of like in a scene like the art scene it's pretty advancing because like you get MoMA, Museum of like MoMA, and then you like New York is the base for America, and you get a lot of the painting I mentioned about that sold around $400 million is it's from America, and now it's owned by a Saudi prince, and
Hmm.
and yes, and a lot of political stuff that connected with art, but we'll get into that later. But for America, it's New York. I think it's a main scene for art, and then for UK, it's from what I gathered, UK is more like London area because want I looked I watched a video on a YouTube how they talk about someone they're proud even though the people doesn't understand art, but they're proud to have this sort of stuff in London. And for China, and right now I think for China it's more like Shanghai, Beijing, but at the moment Taiwan is coming up really quick around because it's like with Taiwan it's really heavy on art scenes about performance arts, visual art and visual art as well. So you got in Taiwan you get a lot of millennials buying art as well. So
So
Yeah.
when you purchase art, and you mentioned performance art, how do you purchase? Can you purchase performance art? Like, is it buying shares of a production company? Is that how you purchase performance art, or is it buying rights to sales online, the copyright, or how is there a way to purchase performance art, or is it mainly when they're talking about these sorts of stats about billions and billions of dollars, it's mainly we're talking about physical frames.
Right. Well, I used to be in a performance arts company, but it's through government funding.
Mm.
So yeah, so I'm guessing it's through funding, public as well as like a private funding. So the way you purchase performing art, you just through fairs, going like people going to see performance
So
performance.
not much private stakeholding in performance art. There mustn't be that much money in it. It's more of a cultural thing to showcase your country, as opposed to something that you create and you develop and you sell, like a product, like a statue or a painting or a photograph or a piece of music, for example.
Yeah, right. So it shows the country's identity and culture and all the what's happening around the country and to reflect that through performance arts.
In London, do you think that Brexit has had an impact on the art market? Do you think that's hurt it or helped it in any way?
Um, I I do read a lot about Brexit and impacting the art world, but right now the UK is the second, which caught up with China. So I think, um, in my opinion, I think they're going good, but they still have to catch up to United States, where a lot of like popular paintings and art has been sold.
Very cool. Okay. Well, that's very interesting. So give us the audience, because you have all the knowledge there packed into your head. It's fantastic. Give us a quick overview, or you take your time on this one, but tell us, because this is the foundational, because I hope you're going to come back and tell us about the art market more on this show, because we really, really enjoy and appreciate your knowledge on this. Could you tell us a brief history of the art market, or the art in general, just going right back to the Stone Age, cave paintings on the wall? Well, if you could give us a rundown on visual arts through history, that would be appreciated.
Well, let me start with the joke by saying one does not simply simplify art. Well,
all right.
yeah, no,
Life
it's
is
like
art.
yeah, well, the art itself, well, it's art. It way back to, like you said, in the cave painting, like Paleolithic era, where people start like cave painting and like how they depict their day-to-day story, and through cave paintings, where the they depict the story on their hunt, like when they go on hunt and stuff, and where with the uh animal has been drawn with like a kind of like 3D shape and stuff, but for the human being it's looked like flat, because like in that era, we as a human being, we still don't have any like self, like we have no idea like how to draw like an eye, or like like through that time it's still cave painting. And then after that era, Neolithic is still the cave painting era, where it's, and then after the Neolithic, we started, as a human, we started like crafting now. So from there we have this like Bronze Age after and then we start with the Bronze Age. For the Bronze Age, you can see a lot of like Egyptians and all the like the stone like craft, like stone sculpting. You got, yeah, for the Egyptian you got like calligraphy, and from calligraphy itself, it's also an art form. And After the Bronze Age, you got like Middle Ages.
Does calligraphy imply writing? Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's alright. Calligraphy is like a writing form.
A form.
Like, so yeah, it's a writing form. It's
Because hieroglyphics are expression of writing as well, aren't they?
yes, sure is, yeah.
So it's like this tool/art tool, right? They're starting to use art as a tool and a mechanism, but it's not very efficient. That's the
yet.
problem. That's the problem with hieroglyphics is it's not hyper efficient. Like English is hyper efficient in a way because it's those it's yeah. Anyway, sorry. Keep going. So the Middle Ages.
Yeah, so Middle Ages, it's where you get interesting, where it's like you get your religious figures and people are starting painting them, and with the churches and with all the glass paintings, that's when the Middle Ages. And then after the Middle Ages, you got Middle Ages is the one where it's like the age of idealism. It's where it's like people use art to influence on people about their religion, and sort of like how do I say, it's like people like making brochures in, you know, like, hey, come see this show, or like blah, you know, kind of like using ideology through art. So and then after that that's when the Renaissance come in. After the Middle Ages, it's like Renaissance is where everything took off. It's where you got like Leonardo, Da Vinci, Da Vinci, and you got Michelangelo and all the other like world-known like artists and painters and inventors. And it's when the it's sort of like became a mainstream in that time. It's when people started going to art schools, and it's sort of like equivalent to like when people want to become movie stars, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and back in the day, people want to be artists, so it's like equivalent of that. So after that, when during that time, like from Paleolithic until Renaissance, it's where people like the art control the people. So when people
expand on that point, that's a very interesting point.
Yeah, art control people. It's because it's like when you have ideology, it's people want to use their ideas and then showcase them to like people to bring in on their side too.
So a theme that I'm picking up until now, up until the Renaissance, is because it was hard to make art in the ancient cave paintings. It was a very specialized. It was hard to grind up the dirt and soil to create the paint or whatever they did, and only the kings could access the painting to put hieroglyphics up on the wall, and because the tiles in Rome, you know, the beautiful mosaics and things, because art was quite hard to do. It was a communication method. That's what I'm picking up. They're trying to. It's either important people trying to communicate something to the peasants, or they're trying to communicate stuff through time. Because as they become more conscious, they're like, hey, I wonder if my great grandson will read this or know what I'm talking about. But now we've hit the Renaissance, and you're saying no. It's becoming more common. The price of the mechanism of doing the art is becoming less, and so the uses are going way beyond just a simple communication between an overlord and an underclass or a time passage thing. And now we're starting to get normal people. It's sort of like the saturation of Facebook, but in a very early day, we're getting normal people talking to other people on a mass scale. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like you said, back in the day, it was like the art is like, I think, limited access, and then since Renaissance, it's become the use for the general public, and everyone's like going to art schools and want to become like the master artist and all master artists and become famous. Yeah. So yeah, after the Renaissance, it's like I said, it's art control people. because like because people use their ideology and their putting their political like views on trying to get people on their side. But then after the Renaissance, you get like after the Renaissance, it took off by like you get romantic age. You get your impressionism. It's when like people started using art as a form of like expressing themselves, like the from within themselves. Like if you get what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's when like you get your painters such as like Van Gogh and like Claude Monet, and which it's having a show right now at National Gallery of Australia since 2 September. So
I just went there actually. It was fantastic, and I really there's a back room. It's free if anyone wants to go in there. Just go straight in there. I didn't. I went and had a look at the contemporary art. I'm sorry, I'm not much of a contemporary art fan. Yeah.
no, it's alright.
I understand what they're trying to do, but I'm more drawn to the old stuff. You know, the 1800s, 1600. I thought that was really good. I really like the Rorke's Bridge, the Rorke's one where they're fighting the Zulus. I thought that was great, and I liked the Bathsheba one. And what I found fascinating is when you read the plaques with all the information on them, is a lot of the people who created the beautiful paintings designed the frames as well. They took a lot of time to design the frames. And my dad said something. He said, "Hey, imagine this without the frame. It wouldn't look so glorious, right?" And then I thought, hey, yeah, these people are tricking us. They're doing a beautiful painting, but then they're adding this really big, illustrious frame. And I reckon that they've increased the value of their painting exponentially on a subliminal level. I mean, it's sneaky stuff, but I like it.
No, it's true because it's like I said, I'm specialized in photography, and framing your photo is a very, very important thing, because if the framing does not work well with your photos, and that just throws off the meaning as well. So like, for example, like you got your Mona Lisa and all the paintings, and if you put a frame that, let's say a boring one, and then it's just a wood framing, and it wouldn't, like it wouldn't showcase. It's like, oh, you got this beautiful painting, but you got your boring frame. It's like, oh, okay, it doesn't work. It has to be. It's like a communication with the painting and the frame, so it has to meld together.
Rorke's Drift is the thing I'm trying to think of. Rorke's Drift, yeah, where there was a tiny little group of Anglos against the hordes and hordes and hordes of Zulus, I think. But it's a great painting. But the Bathsheba one, and I like the Helen of Troy painting. I thought that was great. It's all there. Go and see it if you live in Sydney. I think it's fantastic. Anyway, so yeah, continue. So we're up to the Renaissance and just passing up the Renaissance there. We're heading up a history.
So Renaissance, and then you got your Impressionisms. You got that's when the when people using the started become express themselves, like abstract and all the stuff. They become into the norm, and then after that you get your we get now into a digital age now. Yeah.
What about all the war propaganda? Like, what about all the artwork around posters in the First World War and the Second World War? Join the Empire, all this sort of stuff. Do you class that? Is there a class for that sort of propaganda, nationalist propaganda?
There's a poster as like an art form itself, because it's like I said, like before the time, before the Renaissance, where people use art with their religion and with the religion and stuff. It's the same pattern happening with like world wars, like with the poster, with like join the army, or like America wants you. It shows like to get people's feeling, to get them riled up, and like it's like something to do with the visual.
Because they're very emotional posters. Because like I know the old British ones or the Uncle Sam,
Yes, like the American
very
ones and
famous,
stuff like that.
very
Yeah.
famous, very emotionally. You want to go get those people, right?
Right.
Do you know the artists behind those people, or are they just government, or?
Um. As I said, I'm specialized in photography, but and they are also back in the day. Probably they were like, oh, it's just a poster, but now they're just more than a poster. It's defined like history, and it defines our culture and stuff. So I know the poster, but I don't think I know the artist for it.
So you're a specialist in photography. So when was the first camera invented, and how important was that to changing the world?
So it was the very first time. It wasn't a photo. It was like it's called camera obscura, where it's really, you can still do it nowadays. It's all you need is you have to darken all your room, and then it's like a pinhole. So it's, if you poke a pinhole, and then it will reflect the through the wall, and you can see the landscape. You can see the landscape inverted. So it's like, that's how it started, as a camera obscura. So that's the
Camera obscura. I like it.
Yeah. And but then the very first photo was taken by sorry if I butcher the name, Joseph Nietzsche Nietzsche or Nietzsche. Oh, it's started with like he invented, it's called heliography. It's where they started take the very first photo, and it take I think half a day to expose it, because back in the day it's so long to take a photo exposure. So if you look at it, if you searched up his name, and then you'll see the very first photo, and it's about like if I describe it, it's like a building with a building, and you can see on the building the two sides are lit because of the exposure had taken too long. The sun has the sun moved, so that it lit up all both sides of the building. So after that, you get your if I go through the notes, after that you get your daguerreotype, and then you get the very it's funny how like nowadays we do photoshops with our photos, right? The very first Photoshop, it's like like analog. It's from 1861, where it's like Abe Lincoln had, it's being like posted on a nobleman. That's like a very first Photoshop.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's great.
So
Go Abe Lincoln.
yeah. So after that, you get your the very first handheld camera was invented in 1888. So that's when it's very first handheld camera, and then that's when people started taking it's like photos and stuff, and then when I think I skipped one, it's like when there was a photo taken from it's a French photographer, and taking it when he exposed it, it took 7 minutes to expose it. So when you expose it, it just like, you can see the building and stuff, but the people are there, but the exposure take too long. It's because people are moving, so you don't see them. But there's like, if you look at in the bottom left corner, you can see a man standing still for 7 minutes because he's getting his shoe shined. So that was the very first man photographed.
Wow,
in the
fantastic.
history.
Wow.
So and then when it got to the like 1950s, that's when the very first digital image was scanned. And then after that, you get to the digital age, when the 90s, that's when we became here, and now we get to use the digital cameras and all all this digital cameras, and then you got their phones. So
Let's use that as a segue because we have about 5 minutes left. So let's use that as a segue because
oh
you
wow,
wanted to.
is it that time already?
Yeah, it goes fast on this show. We've got this is where we're thinking, right? So we've got about 5 minutes left. So let's use that as a segue to jump over because I know you're big on these social media platforms, and in the modern day, there's a saturation of photos all over the net. There's bloody Instagram and Facebook, and there's all these things, right? There's all these platforms. There's Google Images and Bing and everything, right? And there's CCTV cameras everywhere. God knows what, right? So there's a saturation of photos. Has that undermined the photograph in any way, or what do you think of that? What do you think of is it Pinterest and stuff? What do you think of the saturation of sort of photos on the internet? Is that undermined photography, or do you think that's a good thing? Or
In my opinion, these social media platforms are just a stepping stone of like photography. Like for example, like if you want to promote your work, it doesn't matter if it's photography or like your painting and stuff. It's just like it's like one step before your the big show. So it's like a tease. It's like a teaser. So, but even then, it's like I use Instagram for my my own photos to promote them and stuff.
we'll leave a link in the description if you want.
Right. So, and Instagram is there. Instagram itself is just another can of worms with photo. It's just like you can be, if artists can manipulate the viewers to get the likes, to promote their work and stuff. Instagram, it's like when I read an article, and now it's like photography. The big museums have been giving way to the contemporary photos because it's to recognize the medium as an art form and stuff. Because of the rise of social media platforms, and people can't tell which is art and which is not. So like if you get what I mean.
So you think that the rise of narcissism can be seen through these social media platforms such as Instagram? It's what they're doing it not because they love photos, but because they're doing it because they're narcissistic, 21st century little degenerates. Is that what's going on?
So back in the day, the selfies, as we call it, are called self-portraits. That's when we use painting tools and stuff to like express our like reality, like what we see in ourselves, to show the people that like this is, for example, like the way the brush stroke that we use, it's like in a way it can become like anger, or like it can become like love and stuff. But nowadays, these meaning behind it just is like it's being thrown out the window, as it called like selfies, where it's all about promoting, and like you said, a narcissistic way of it just
I saw a girl have a cry because she got because she was basically doing soft pornography, or if not pornography, on one of these sites, and they said, oh, get off this, and she said, oh, but my 100,000 followers. But it's like, don't put pornography on your own, because she went from being semi-famous to essentially very famous, but the way she got there was she went more and more and more skimpy along the way. So it's a generation of narcissists. Hey, look, we've got like a minute left. So the Digital Art Museum in Tokyo. Did you tell us about that? That sounds amazing. I think Melania Trump went there. Looked awesome.
Yeah. So the very first digital museum in Tokyo, it's behind the for example, it's behind the Team Lab Borderless. These a team of artists. They create a digital world, if I say so. So it's equivalent to what we do with our 3D image mapping around the building, which is, if you live in Australia, you will know these techniques called Vivid. Like if you go to like Vivid Sydney, that's how they do it. And then if you go to if you live in Canberra, it's Enlighten, and how people project the shows onto the building itself. So the digital art. Um, Let me give you one work example. It's like you one of the work is you walk into a room and in the middle there's like a it's represent a rock. So and it's being projected through the whole room, and when it looked like you're in a waterfall. So how they do it is they're real time tracking as well. So if you run up and sit on a stone or sit on the rock, the water will like warp around you. It's like to stimulate a reality rather than it's like just projecting over you and then the water will like warp around you and then just come. It's like interaction between the art and the viewer.
The rise of the digital age into reality. It's not going to be just VR. It's going to be things like this.
No, I think this is where art is headed, like through digital, VR and AR, which these guys are doing. The Team Lab Borderless. They what they're doing is like a replication of like for example, AR, like artificial reality, which for if you want to use an AR, you actually need like a phone or like a computer. But if you go to these like artworks, it's like a literal like artificial reality. Like you can do so much thing with AR and VR and all the stuff. It's with combined with art and stuff. So one of the work it's as well from them. It's where the animals and stuff as being with they're being on the animals. They have flowers on them. So it shows the circle of life. So when they start with like animals like walking around the room, and then after when it finished, they just like wither and die. But if someone it's like a circle of life. So if someone want to come in and say, oh, it's an animal, it's like a lion, and if they touch it, and then it's like, and then they start it wither and they die. So it's like it's sort of like a meaning behind it, like a symbolism, and like it's the meaning behind it. It's like it's how nowadays we with like poaching and stuff, or like raw like rare exotic animals and stuff. It's like how the human treat animals and stuff, and it's really it's worth a look if you're in like Tokyo and stuff to go and see it. They like I live in camera, so all I have to do is just log in and looking on the website, but the experience is it's
Melania Trump went there when she was visiting Japan. Look, we run out of time market. We'll talk about different paintings, different photos, different prices, where all the money is shifting, and new developments in the digital AR, VR. AR, I like that. I like that a lot, John. Thank you very much. AR, VR worlds and stuff like that. So thank you, John. And
I think that's where the art is headed. It's we still have the old way of making art, but the new ways are coming. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, John, and we're going to have you on a lot. You're going to be a regular on here for sure.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah.
Thanks.